The time has come for my final review, final thoughts after trying this for quite a long time. It's Nudie Patootie time. Are you ready? Hang tight, we're getting into it right now. If you are new to the channel, hello. I actually already did a first impression review on the Nudie Patootie palette, but first impressions aren't really my thing. I mostly got that out because I knew people were really curious about buying it right in that moment. So I did swatches and I did a first impression, but I wanted to do a more in-depth review for people that really care about that in-depth information that I personally care about and love to provide. So today we're going to talk ingredients, we're gonna do 2 wear tests, and then my final thoughts after trying this for a while, because I personally feel like it takes more than just trying something once in order to get a full thought on something. For example, the look that I'm wearing today, I have the NYX glitter glue on one side and the lit glitter glue on the other, because my biggest critique of this palette after the first impression was that I had glitter fall out all over my face. So learning which products work well alongside of a product, using all of the shades in the palette, I feel like is really important to me to give you a full picture. But I will link that first impression review down below in case you're curious what was said in that one. In case you are not familiar with Laura Lee Los Angeles, let's go ahead and break down some information about the brand. So if you don't know, Laura Lee started off, I believe, on YouTube, but she also has a very popular Instagram with millions of followers, and she started her cosmetic company, Laura Lee Los Angeles, with an eyeshadow palette. I believe it was in the fall. I do have a review of the Cat's Pajamas palette that I will link down below. This is her second palette. In full disclosure, this was sent to me for review purposes in PR. I did also purchase one because I did not know that she was going to send a palette again. We hadn't talked in a while, so I didn't know that this was coming, so I did purchase one, so there will be a giveaway that I haven't quite decided exactly how I'm going to do it, so details on that at the end of the video after I figure out how I'm going to do that, but there will be a giveaway on the one that I personally purchased. The product is made in the United States. It is cruelty-free and vegan. Let's talk about the design a little bit. So she did change up the design, which we went into a little bit more in the first impression, but I'll give you the crash course in it. It is cardboard packaging. There is a magnetic closure in here, but the magnetic closure is really strong, which I absolutely love. The packaging is very sleek, but it is, as you can see, very long. It is more expensive than the Cat's Pajamas palette, but you're also getting 4 more shades than you did in the Cat's Pajamas palette. This one is $45. In every palette order, you do get a Nudie Patootie card with Laura's pretty face there, and also descriptions of all of the shades. One thing that's very, very important about the shades is there's an asterisk next to 2 of the shades, and those shades are Au Naturel and J Bird. Those I like to call pressed glitters, but Laura calls them, what does she call them? But Laura calls them foiled shadows. Now, I did see some reviews where these shades in particular were broken or the product fell out. I believe that is just because the glitter is so chunky in here that they probably weren't pressed hard enough, didn't have enough binding agent, or a combination of both. For the record, mine had no problems with coming out. I also took the one for giveaway. I opened it up so it won't be, the sticker paper is ripped because I wanted to open it up and just make sure nothing was broken. I gave it a little shake just like you saw here, and there was nothing wrong with that one either. But I have seen them break on other people, but you know, I personally didn't have a problem, so I can't speak to that one. I had a similar experience with the Colored Rain Cheers to the Beauty palette, where one of the shadows in there was the same thing happened. It broke on me and Colored Rain replaced it for me. I believe that if you do get one, they will be replacing those for you. There's 7 mattes in here, which I think is really nice because I feel like mattes are a really nice way to balance out a look, and also just a plain matte look can be very, very beautiful. So the mattes in here are Undressed, Reveal, Streaking, Butt Naked. We'll get to that in a second. Strip, Bare, and Nakey Nakey. I do believe the term is technically buck naked, but butt naked I find to be much funnier, and it makes me smile more than buck naked, so I'm actually very glad she called it butt naked. Along with that, you do have ones that I would call foiled / metallic shades. That's Topless, Undercover, Exposed, and Buff. There are 2 duochromes in here, which are really cool. One of them is Topless, which is what I'm wearing on most of my lid today. The other one is Jaybird. And when I did the first impression demo of this product, I used Jaybird all over my lid, and so many people were like, why is it one color on one lid and one color on the other lid? And I probably answered at least 7 or 8 of them saying it's a duochrome shade. It's the same color, it just shifts. It is really, really, really cool how it does that. It's really, really pretty. The other one is Topless, where it does have a little bit of a gold reflect in the background, but the duochrome is not nearly as strong as in Jaybird. It just has a tiny bit of a shifty undertone to it. Both of them are very beautiful shades. As far as the shade selection in here, I have to tell you, I am a little bit disappointed in the lack of mid-tone shades in here. There's lots of light and a couple of dark, which make it a little bit more difficult for people with deeper skin tone to use. At least from tutorials that I've watched of lots of palettes, I love to watch people of many different skin tones that goes from very, very fair to very, very deep, so I can learn about how products work for people of different skin tones. And looking at this, based on my background knowledge, it just seems like this would be very difficult to work with for people of color, just because there's so many light shades. Does it mean that people of color won't be able to work with this? No, I think that people of color will be able to work with this, but maybe not as a complete palette, maybe having to bring in other shades to go with it. And it is very light heavy, so if you don't feel like you have a lot of use for lighter shades, then this may not be worth it to you. I mean, I think Jaybird and Au Naturel will look gorgeous on everybody, but we've got these kind of disco ball looking shades over here that may be a little more difficult or a little less useful for people with deeper skin tones. It is nice that these are so dark though. When Laura did her video, I thought that these were going to be lighter, and I thought that that was going to make this even less people of color friendly, but they are quite deep, which I'm very appreciative of, because it definitely even helps me with my skin tone to be able to create some more depth and dimension with the shades. Before we go into the demo of how I got this look today and the wear test, let me just go a little bit into ingredients. I'm trimming down my ingredient analysis to just include ingredients that I think you might want to know about based on the comments, because I used to say all of them, so now I kind of know which ones are the hot button ones. So first of all, there is talc and mica in both of these. Some people are sensitive to talc, and some people are very anti-mica for human rights reasons. And if you're curious about that, you can always search mica human rights, look up articles, look up YouTube videos, and learn more about that. There is ethylhexyl palmitate in here as well, which is also a very common ingredient in cosmetics and especially eyeshadows. That is a palm oil derivative, where some people do not use palm oil derivatives for environmental reasons. 2 more things: tocopherol acetate, which is a form of vitamin E. Some people are sensitive to that, so I wanted to let you know. And also phenoxyethanol is the preservative in here. There are no parabens, but some people are sensitive to phenoxyethanol, so I did want to mention that in case that's you. Some people like to tap eyeshadows onto their lips for a fun effect. I would imagine most of these are lip safe. If you want to know which ones have the ultramarines, which is listed as a may or may not contain pigment, which is not lip safe, I'm hoping that if you contacted Laura Lee Los Angeles, they would be able to tell you which shades contained ultramarines. I did not do that. I just thought of it just now. I probably should have asked, but I didn't, so I'm sorry about that. But ultramarines are not lip safe. All of the pigments do look like they're eye safe though, so that's really good. So now let's go ahead and have some fun, and let's put these on the eyes and see how it looks, and we'll do a wear test, and we'll see how these last for the day, and see if we get the insane amount of fallout that I got on the first time that I tried it in the first impression. So let's go ahead and I'll show you that right now.
Let's get the headliner, 'cause they can't do the things you do to me. We about to start a fire, alright, and you taste like kerosene. Oh girl, tell me when was the last time you had the first time? Let's get the headliner. Don't really know you, but I could be doing this forever. For the first your hands all in my pockets. Ooh la la la. If you started, I won't stop it. All I wanna do is watch you blush.
So now that you have seen them applied, let me go ahead and show you the time. It is currently 3:16, and yeah, so I will be back at the end of the day to show you how this wore, and then we're going to do a second wear test, and that is going to be the dupe wear test. I'm going to try to find other shadows in my collection that are similar to this one and kind of put them head to head and see if the Nudie Patootie can outperform them, and then we'll do final thoughts. So it's going to be many hours for me, just a couple seconds for you. Let's go ahead and see how these wore through the day. All right, my friend, it has been about almost 8.5 hours since I put this eyeshadow on. Let's go ahead and zoom in and see what we're dealing with here. All right, so I've got some opinions here. Remember, for this look, I did do something different. I didn't apply a primer down. I just went in straight with the glitter glue because I wanted to see how that would work. So I've got the lit glitter glue on this side, the NYX glitter glue on this side. I do still have glitter fallout under my eyes, unfortunately, which makes me so sad because that means that every glitter glue that I own, none of them hold on to the glitters completely. Is it so bad that I think everybody would notice and be like, well, she got glitter all over her whole face? No, I don't think many people would notice, but I notice, and it was kind of like, meh. So that's kind of a bummer. I also noticed with the NYX side, we have some transferring of the glitter up onto the brow bone, but on the lit side, I have a little bit of a space here. There's no transfer, but I've got a little bit of a space. So the NYX side is very similar to the Too Faced glitter glue. I do think that the glitter fallout throughout the day is a little bit worse on the lit side, so I probably won't use that with this palette again. I'll probably stick with the NYX and the Too Faced, but just know that the glitter is going to fall if I use one of the shimmer shades, which is such a bummer. I've also lost a lot of my separation of color between the deep shade and the medium shades, and the medium shades with each other, which is different because every other time I've used this, I've felt like the separation of color stayed really good throughout the day. So I think that's due to me not using a regular eyeshadow primer first and just jumping straight into the glitter. So for tomorrow, we will definitely use a regular primer first because I don't like that that's faded. I got a little bit of a wonky lash on this side, but that's not the eyeshadow's fault. So does it look terrible after 8 hours? No. Does it look the same? Am I super impressed with it? Absolutely not. But I do think that it's due to me not using an eyeshadow primer down first. So if you are going to purchase this, make sure you do pair it up with an eyeshadow primer. It will make a really big difference in the lasting power. All right, let's go ahead and zoom out real quick. Day is done, gone the sun, and my halo hair extension. It's over, it's done. I am ready to take the hair off, all the fake hair, all of it. Every bit of fake hair that is on me is gone now. I've got my lashes off, I've got my hair off, I'm going to bed. We will be back in my time tomorrow for you in a couple of seconds with the second wear test, and I'm really excited for this one because this is the dupe look and I haven't found the dupes in my collection yet, but I have faith. I have faith I'm going to find them and we're going to create a look. Oh, I'm so excited. All right, see you in a second. Hello, we're back for day 2 demo / wear tests / awesomeness with lawn things happening outside. We're just gonna ignore it. We're gonna pretend like it's not there. So today, this is an exciting day. What I realized when I went to go film this, which was the day after what you just watched, is I realized that I didn't have a lot of dupes, especially drugstore dupes, and I want to give you more drugstore options or less expensive options for higher end palettes. So I went to the drugstore and I purchased like $50-some worth of drugstore eyeshadow palettes to try to find dupes for this. I also went through my high-end collection and tried to find dupes for some of the shades. So I've got a lot of information for you. I'm going to go ahead and share that with you first, and then we're going to get into the dupe look, which is also extremely out of my comfort zone. But we'll get into that in a minute. Let's talk about dupes, and we're going to stop talking, Jen. Just go. All right, so here is the Nudie Patootie palette, and we're going to be talking about the dupes that I found in my collection and also comparing to some things that are available in the drugstore right now. I want to preface this by saying I do not believe that Laura created this palette with thoughts of other palettes in her mind. There are just only so many colors out there available, so please don't take this as me saying anything negative against Laura in any way at all. So when I heard people comparing this palette to other palettes, the first thing I heard was comparing it to the Naked 3 palette by Urban Decay. This is kind of the iconic pink palette, but one thing you'll notice about this is that the Naked 3 is extremely cool tone. So when you put them next to each other, they really have absolutely no similarities. I tried to find a single dupe in the Naked 3 for something in the Nudie Patootie, could not find a single dupe. They are completely different palettes. For example, in the drugstore, you might find the CoverGirl True Naked Roses palette, and you'll see that this is very similar to the Naked 3, but not to the Nudie Patootie. There's also the new City Kits Pink Edge palette by Maybelline. Again, very cool tone. This one is a little bit closer to the Nudie Patootie, but it's still very cool toned pink overall. This is the new L'Oreal Paradise palette, the one that smells like peaches. I feel like this one is probably one of the closest comprehensively to the tone of the Nudie Patootie, but it's still very different. Another comparison that I heard was that it was similar to the Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam palette. Now, I don't own that, but I do own the, quote, dupe palette by Bad Habit. This is the Arabesque palette. And looking at those next to each other, yes, there are some similarities, and I'll show you some dupes from this palette in a bit, but again, it's very, very different comprehensively overall. Looking at the You Had Me at Hello palette by ColourPop, again, we're leaning toward that more warm color pink, but this one's more of a berry to browns rather than a peach to browns like the Nudie Patootie. Speaking of peach, let's talk about the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette and look at those swatches. Again, very, very different color scheme. There are some similar shades in there, but very different color scheme. Now, of course, the only way to truly tell what shades are dupes or not is to put them directly next to each other. So we're going to go through each shade of the Nudie Patootie palette and talk about the dupes. Let's start with Stark. So we've got the Too Faced Natural Love palette shade Poodle. We've got that L'Oreal new palette shade 1, the Too Faced Peach palette White Peach, and ColourPop's You Had Me at Hello palette in the Knot. And as you can see, some of these are matte. The one in the L'Oreal palette is a shimmer. Depending on what you want to do with these, you may be able to use the matte ones for the same purpose, but really the closest dupe we have here is that ColourPop You Had Me at Hello, the Knot shade. Moving on to Undressed, I really had a hard time finding a dupe for this, which was really surprising. Everything was either too light or too champagne or too dark, and the only one that I could find that was similar was the Too Faced Natural Love Spotlight, and I do feel like they are similar even though the Laura Lee one is slightly darker. Next we have Topless, and I was a little surprised at how many similar shades I had to this. We've got Jaclyn Hill's Little Lady, Too Faced Natural Love Honeymoon, the new L'Oreal palette shade 10, the Bad Habit Nutcracker shade, and then the ColourPop You Had Me at Hello in Candygram. To me, the closest dupes are that Jaclyn Hill Little Lady and then the Bad Habit shade in Nutcracker. I will be listing all of these dupes down below, including the matchup shade for the Anastasia palette with the Bad Habit palette. Streaking is the next shade, and again, I couldn't find an exact dupe, but on the eyes, these are probably going to look quite similar. We've got the Too Faced Natural Love Honey Butter, NYX's Stormy Skies, the first shade, and the Jaclyn Hill MFEO shade. And, you know, these are pretty relatively interchangeable. I feel like the closest one is probably, again, the Jaclyn Hill one, but they're all kind of similar. Uncover is the first kind of shimmery disco ball shade that we're coming across. The dupe shades are Jaclyn Hill's Obsessed and the Too Faced Natural Love Cutie Patootie. You might be starting to see a trend in the amount of Jaclyn Hill and Too Faced Natural Love palette dupes. We're gonna get into, I'm gonna show you all that later. Going over to Strip, again, I had a lot of trouble finding a dupe for this shade. Nothing matched closely except for Creamsicle by Jaclyn Hill. Pukey was kind of close, but it's a little bit darker, but nothing was an exact match in my collection. I feel like Bear was definitely the hardest one to match. Too Faced Candied Peach from the Peach palette is the closest in my opinion. Also, the L'Oreal shade in the new palette, number 7. That's one actually is closer to the Too Faced Candied Peach than it is to Bear, but it's the closest that I had, so I wanted to show them to you. Expose the other shade that I like to call the Disco Ball shade. Jaclyn Hill's Hustle is right next to it, along with ColourPop's Had You Had Me at Hello. The shade is called DTR. I feel like Hustle is almost an exact dupe for tone, but the Laura Lee one has a significant amount more sparkle. It is definitely more poppy than the Jaclyn Hill one. Once again, Au Naturel. We've got Jaclyn Hill's Queen and Too Faced Natural Love, Dear Diary, and Queen really is a very close dupe. Reveal is the Tan Matte Brown. With this, again, no exact dupe. The closest was the Too Faced Natural Love's Nudie. I did want to show you the Bad Habit Waltz shade because I feel like if you go with a light hand, you can probably use it in a very similar way. Now, Jaybird is that duochrome that Laura threw in there. It does shift from this reddish shade to a gold shade. I do not have a shade in my collection that is exactly the same as this, but the ones that I feel are the closest that don't have that duochrome shift but do have that reddish shade are Jaclyn Hill's Firework and the Too Faced Natural Love's Hot and Bothered, which I feel like are pretty much exact dupes, those two, but they don't have that gold shift that the Nudie Patootie does. I was not as surprised to find so many dupes for this shade. I do like it in the palette. I think it's a good shade for the palette, but definitely dupeable. For Butt Naked, we have Jaclyn Hill's Buns, then we have the Too Faced Natural Love Makeup and Chill, L'Oreal, the new palette, number 11, the Bad Habit shade in Ballet Slippers, ColourPop's Double Entendre palette in Hard, and ColourPop's You Had Me at Hello, Want You Back. I really, truly feel like you could use any of these shades and it would look pretty much exactly the same on the eye. 2 more shades left. This one was a little bit more difficult to dupe because of the sparkle in the background. This is Buff, and the closest I could find was Too Faced Natural Love Chocolate Martini, which does have a different color sparkle in the background, but yet it does have some sparkle and they are very close. And finally, we have Nakey Nakey, and again, not super surprised that I was able to find some dupes for this. Jaclyn Hill's Essential Park, Bad Habits Melodrama, the Double Entendre from ColourPop Teddy Bear, and ColourPop's You Had Me at Hello Sparks Fly are very, very similar. Because there were so many dupes in the Jaclyn Hill palette, I wanted to swatch the dupes next to each other. So as you can see, there are 9 shades here that can be sort of duped with the Laura Lee palette. So if you do have the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette, you may want to skip on this one. You may want to pass. What you're going to be missing out on is the intensity of those foiled shades. The foiled shades are definitely more pigmented and more intense in the Laura Lee palette than they are in the Jaclyn Hill palette, but the tone is very, very similar. I also wanted to show you the Too Faced Natural Love palette with those dupes next to each other. There's 9 of them here, and I do feel like, again, the Laura Lee palette is more pigmented than the Too Faced palette. But if you do have the Natural Love palette and you're not dying over the differences, then you may want to pass on the Nudie Patootie. So as you can see, I had a really hard time finding dupes in the drugstore, but the best dupe palettes that I could find were the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette, which had quite a few shades, and also the Too Faced Natural Love palette. I felt like those were the closest as far as getting as many dupes for this palette. But what it comes down to is the majority of pink palettes that are out there are more similar to the Urban Decay Naked 3 palette. They're very cool toned, where this one is more warm toned. It is more unique. Is it completely unique? No, not completely unique. I wanted to do something out of my comfort zone for this look because I feel like I can always expand my makeup techniques, and what better way to do it than to do it with you, because you might be able to give me tips on how I could do things even better, and why not use you as a resource for helping me to be better at what I do. So I found a really, really hard makeup tutorial. Her name is Makeup by Rose XOXO. She has 33,000 subscribers. This look is gorgeous on her, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to recreate it. But the problem was every tutorial that I found that was inspiring used the shade Bear, which is the one that I couldn't find any exact dupes in my collection for. So we're just going to dip into the Too Faced Peach palette to find something similar. It's not the same, but the majority of the shadows I'm going to use are going to be from the drugstore priced palettes, because I want to see if the Laura Lee palette can beat these drugstore type palettes. I'm gonna link Rose's video down below in case you wanna check out the original version of this look. All right, are you ready for this? I'm ready for this. Let's have some fun.
Put the brakes on before you could start it. Turns out the key to my heart, you ain't got it. No, cause you think you had me, but you've been outsmarted. No, your problem's too big to sweep under the carpet. No, but what you didn't know, girls talk. What you didn't know, sweet talk about you. What you didn't know, girls talk. What you didn't know, what you didn't know. What you didn't know, girls talk. And you've been caught. Tell me what you know about that. Yeah, you hot, but you lost, and I'm gone, and now you never get me back. You gotta be crazy if you think you'll get away, but you're not, cause you've been caught, and now you never get me back. I did keep secrets, but everyone knows them. You just a drop in the idiot ocean. Yeah, there's plenty of fish if you wanna keep going. As long as I'm talking, I'll make sure they know it. Yeah, but what you didn't know, girls talk. What you didn't know, sweet talk about you. What you didn't know.
We're just gonna pause for a second. Okay, so maybe Rose is able to do this without a wet brush, but it sure does look like these colors are wet. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna wet this brush, and I'm gonna wet it with some setting spray and try to do what she's doing, because it's powdery. It's not as crisp as what she's doing. So I think I personally need some Fix Plus. Of course, I can't find my Fix Plus, so we're just gonna use the Makeup Forever Mist and Fix and try to get it as sharp as hers is.
Girls talk, we talk. What you didn't know, what you didn't know. What you didn't know. Girls talk, and you've been caught. Tell me what you know about that. Yeah, you hot, but you lost, and I'm gone, and now you never get me back.
I'm definitely not completely even, and I feel like these are not as high up as hers, and I feel like they're kind of dragging my eyes down.
You gotta be crazy if you think you'll get away, but you're not, cause you've been caught, and now you never get me back. Girls talk, girls talk, girls talk, girls talk, yeah. You've been acting like a little boy, playing around with your paranoid. I ain't gonna give you one more try. You can kiss my, cause you ain't my type. You've been acting like a little boy, playing around with your paranoid. I ain't gonna give you one more try. You can kiss my, cause you ain't my type. Girls talk, and you've been caught. Tell me what you know about that. Yeah, you hot, but you lost, and I'm gone, and now you never get me back. You gotta be crazy if you think you'll get away, but you're not, cause you've been caught, and now you never get me back. Girls talk, girls talk, girls talk, all that it takes for us is just one look. Just cause it's wrong right now don't mean we're no good. I see you and get mad, I can't have it, cause those beautiful eyes are a magnet. Quiero perderme lento con tu voz. A veces te amo y te odio a la vez. You know what I mean. You get me deeper, now we're getting deeper. We shouldn't do it, but man, I wanna do it all. Somos tú y yo allá bajo la luna. Yo te regalo emociones desnudas. Getting deeper, now we're getting deeper. Go. what they told us, no. Don't know, I guess we just had poor timing, but you still get my temperature rising. Sé que tú sientes lo mismo como yo.
Well, that was interesting. I'm not sure how well I pulled off this look, but I tried my best, and that's all we can do, and I had fun doing it. I don't think I look like her at all, but we tried, you know? And the most important thing is that we're testing out these eyeshadows next to each other. So are they gonna stick to the face? This is the first time I've tried the Nudie Patootie palette over top of concealer. I've tried them over three different glitter glues. I've tried them wet. Everything makes the glitter fall down on my face throughout the day. So I'm curious if the concealer might be able to hold on to these shadows. We shall see. So right now it is currently, let's see if I can get my notifications to turn away. It is currently 3:16 in the afternoon, so I will be back at the very end of the day to check in and see how this wore through the day and to see if the Nudie Patootie looks better than the less expensive shadows that I used, minus the Too Faced one, because that was the only one I had that matched that look, but that's another story that I already told, and I'm knocking things over and I should go. So we'll see you in a couple of seconds at the end of the day. All right, it's actually only been 45 minutes. I just can't stay away from you. I just miss you too much. Okay, so it is almost 4 o'clock, and I looked in the mirror. I just picked up my car from getting some work done on my car, and I'm looking and I'm like, oh my gosh, number one, this crease is not blended at all. Number two, the glitter transfer of that one shade on the Nudie Patootie palette, what is it? What's this one called? Exposed? Yes, Exposed is out of control. Let me go ahead and zoom you in so you can see. I'm not sure if you saw this 45 minutes ago or not, but I didn't see it until just now. The difference between the two sides, if you can see the glitter transfer up into the crease and onto the brow bone. Pretty much every time I use these shades, I have that problem. And I don't know what she can do to fix that, but it's not staying put where I put it. Now, compared to the Jaclyn Hill, which was the dupe for the Exposed that I use, I think it's called Hustle, the Exposed one, the Laura Lee one, is much more glittery. It's much chunkier, so you get a more intense sparkle, but the transfer is just insane. So one other thing I wanted to mention about just comparing using the drugstore shadows versus using the Laura Lee palette, I found that the drugstore shadows were a little harder to work with, a little harder to blend, especially when I ended up in wet. That was when I really feel like that was when it kind of all went to crap on my left side or your right side. So I'm just going to take a second and I'm just going to blend this a little bit more on this side because it's driving me insane looking at it. And I'm going to blend this side too, just a little bit, so they match a little bit better. I'm not going to touch up the glitter side. I'm just gonna let that be, but I did want to mention that I did notice that it's already transferring up, and I wanted to show you in real time when I notice something. I want you to see it too. Now in the demo, she had a very strong cut crease there. I couldn't get a sharp line, especially starting off with a dry brush rather than a wet brush, because I didn't hear, if she did say in the directions to wet the brush, I must have missed that part, but I did not wet the brush initially. And it doesn't matter whose fault it is, it just didn't work for me. So blending it out, I think, is gonna be my only option, and I think that looks much better now. I do feel like the other shades in the Laura Lee palette, other than the Exposed shade, were much easier to use than their drugstore counterparts. So I'm gonna go ahead and do what I said I was gonna do last time. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna come back at the end of the day, and we're gonna do final thoughts on this palette. We're gonna look at wear time and all of that, and glitter fallout, and just kind of wrap this baby up. All right, we'll be right back. I pulled my hair down because I was getting a really bad hair headache and I just couldn't take it. So we have hair down now. But hair has nothing to do with this video. It has to do with the eyeshadow. And I'm actually quite surprised at the results. Let's go ahead and zoom in and let's take a look together. I forgot to tell you, it's about 11:30 at night, so we are at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 8 hours, a little over 8 hours, which is a typical school work day for those that have those at typical times. For me, not so much. So yeah, let me go ahead and close and show you what we're dealing with here. Very, 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 very interesting. I wasn't expecting the drugstore side to last this well with the separation of color and everything. As you can see, the shimmer has definitely traveled even more up from the Laura Lee palette. It's all over the place, but you can see the Jaclyn Hill side has also traveled up. So I don't know if that has to do with the concealer that I used, that I didn't use a glitter glue. It might be possible. I don't typically use concealer in my looks, but I was going out of my comfort zone, and I know a lot of people do use concealer on their lids. So, you know, I mean, this is just, it is what it is. Let me just close my eyes one more time. So remember, this is drugstore. This is the Laura Lee, and we'll go ahead and zoom out for final thoughts. All right, so this is kind of how I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling like that I'm too low down. That's something I'm feeling like. There we go. Okay. I'm feeling like I really like the Nudie Patootie palette, and let me tell you why I really like it and why I don't love it. I really like it because I feel like that the ease of use is definitely there. I felt the blendability, the seamlessness of it was really, really, really good for me. Where I don't like it is that I'm still having a lot of trouble with the shimmery shades, especially Exposed, Au Naturel, and Jaybird. Those are the ones that I feel like I'm having the most trouble with, not necessarily putting them where I want them, but keeping them where I want them and them not traveling wherever they feel like it. Hopefully you could see when you're zoomed in, I do still have a lot of glitter fallout on this side. I do not have that on this side, but that I can attribute to the chunky glitter of that shade Exposed. That is definitely what is this fallout throughout the day. If I had to give the Nudie Patootie a 1 to 5 rating, I would probably give it a 4. It's good, but it's not great. It's not a palette that I'm going to reach for all of the time, but I can see myself reaching for it some of the time. Because one other thing I do feel like this palette has going for it is that it is a pretty unique color selection. And I know there's gonna be people that are gonna argue with me about that, but I'm telling you, it is unique. I don't have anything like this where I can get all of this in one palette. You saw how many palettes I had to use in my collection in order to even get close to these shades. If you have the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette, if you have the Too Faced Natural Love palette, you may wanna consider skipping this if there aren't any additional shades that are calling to you, because there are a lot of shades that are pretty repetitive in those two. But if you don't own either of those two, and this is calling to you, I think you might like it. The lasting power on it is very good, and it just so happens that all the drugstore palettes that I used today also had good lasting power. A lot of these are very new to me. This one and this one, these are ones that I just bought for this video specifically, so I can't speak to their lasting power on their own, but yeah, I'm looking forward to trying them more because they seem like they're pretty good palettes, except for that they just were a little bit more difficult to work with than this. Giveaway, by the way, we are going to have a giveaway. I will link the rules for the giveaway down in the video description, but we are going to be giving away the Nudie Patootie that I purchased. The giveaway will end 1 week from today. So just very quickly, who do I think this is good for? I think this is good for people that like lighter shades, that have use for a lot of lighter shades, people that like warm pink tones, gold tones, just warm tones in general, because this is overwhelmingly a warmer palette. There are some cooler shades in here, but it's mostly warm. I do think that if you like mattes and you love working with mattes, you're probably really going to like this. If you like this duochrome shade Jaybird, you're going to love this. This is a really, really fun shade to play with. People that are not going to like this, of course, are people that don't like the color scheme, that don't need all of the light shades that are included. People that do not like glitter fallout throughout the day on their cheeks, you're probably not going to like this unless you figure out a way to use it that I haven't figured out yet. If you have, by the way, definitely leave that in the comments below. I do find overall this is very easy to work with, except for these shimmery glittery shades that just seem to be a little too chunky and they just don't adhere to the eye the way that I hoped that they would. But other than that, I mean, I feel like if I had the opportunity to return this, I would not return it. I think that this would be worth my purchase. But, you know, you have to decide for yourself whether it's worth it for you. I like my Nudie Patootie. But the question is, do you like Nudie Patootie? But let me know what you think. in the comments down below. Do you like it? Are you planning on purchasing it? Do you already own it? What do you think of it? If you do, please let me know. In the collective brain of makeup awesomeness, where we help each other not to buy crap and to buy things that are totally worth it, please leave your thoughts about the Nudie Patootie palette down in the comments below so we can all learn from you. And thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you found it insanely helpful. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss my content in the future. Mad love to you, my friend, and I will see you in a video very, very soon.